And record.
To record. Should we start with the URL and HTTP? I figure
Sure.
that'll go
Yeah.
a little more easily. Okay, perfect. So let's see. I need to, I think, share my screen. Let's see. It's been too long since I've done this. There we go. Okay, I'll share my screen with everybody. All right, so you should all be able to see my screen right now. I created a fun PowerPoint for this. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Okay, so URL and HTTP is what I'm going to be covering. Let's start off with URL. URL stands for the Universal Resource Locator. It's basically a protocol for specifying addresses on the internet, basically helping you take some words to get to a server and retrieve some information. So I got this definition from dictionary.com, which is a great example of what a URL is. So this https://www.dictionary.com/browse/URL is a URL. And so essentially these are addresses to get to any website you want to, or any information basically on another computer that's usually connected to the internet. You could use these to access things on like an intranet or local network as well. I like to think of them as like a street address. So like you could say, I live at 200 Freedom Boulevard or something like that in Provo, and you'd be able to look that up and figure out where that is based on that. And then this is just a screenshot of another URL from a web browser. There are several parts to a URL. The first is that protocol. So in the previous examples, you know how they were HTTPS and at the HTTP, so on. The host name, that's usually like the www dot and then whatever, maybe google.com, github.com, whatever it is. In some cases, I've seen ports specified. I find that really rare. Most of the time, the actual port number isn't specified, and I assume that just as soon as that request is received, it's processed as to which port it needs to go to. And then the path and file name, that's very common. So as we look at some of these examples that are shared down here, you might see like an FTP protocol and then go to this host name, www.ftp.org, and then the path to the file is /doc/test.txt. I'll pull up that txt file. Any questions about URL so far? Okay.
Not so far.
Okay, cool. So then we'll switch over to HTTP, which stands for the Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which has been the standard protocol on the web for years and years and years. Now, I got this definition from dictionary.com, and I think one of the interesting things that's happened in my lifetime, as far as, or at least that I can remember from the web, is this change that most sites are going to, which is changing the protocol to HTTPS, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. The really only difference is that it encrypts the hypertext when it sends it, and that creates a much more secure connection where it's encrypted from the server and then decrypted on the browser that's accessing it. I've noticed, for example, Google and the Chrome browser are really big in pushing HTTPS over HTTP. One of my jobs, or what I do for work, is oftentimes we have to pull up printer pages, so printer admin pages, and those always are in HTTP, and you'll always get that. I always get that warning in Chrome where it says this website may be unsecure, and that's just because it's using the old HTTP instead of HTTPS protocol. HTTP isn't as visible as URL. You're not gonna know that, oh, that's the HTTP coming through or whatever. It's more of the process in which the packets are sent. It's not a coding language. You're not going to sit down and code the actual HTTP. And it's just really a set of rules that tells the computer how to send the information. So HTTP is really broken into two pieces. You're going to have the HTTP request, which is usually coming from a user's web browser. So you're viewing this on a smartphone, computer, laptop, tablet, whatever it is. It's going to usually send a request to a server, which is then going to respond with an HTTP response message. HTTP is a stateless protocol, meaning that it doesn't track basically where it is in the process. So it doesn't say, oh, I've gotten packet 8 of 10 or something like that. It just, you request a packet, it sends a packet. It doesn't try to track those large requests there. And then HTTP negotiates the data and allows for application level protocol. It's very generic as far as that goes. Let me show an example of, this would be an example of an HTTP request. It looks something like this. It would say, I need to get this file from this host. I'll accept these kind of files. So in this example, I need to get a document, HTTP or index.html from this docs folder at host nowhere123.com. And I'll accept images that are GIFs or JPEGs, and I'll accept it in English and this encoding. Did someone have a question? Never mind. And then once that request goes to the server, a server would respond with something like this. This is being HTTP response. It'll say, using HTTP 1.1200. Okay, let me just timestamp that. I received that on Sunday, the 18th of October, 2009. And this will come out of the server might be running Apache, this version on a Windows 32-bit system. And it'll say the file was last modified, the date, tag it, and it'll send it and close the connection. And that's how it would come out. You might see something like this. Any questions about how that works? Okay, so on the browser, you'd again get something like this. The browser would send out this kind of request, HTTP request message saying get this information. Server would return that, the browser would decode it, and it would display usually a web page. It's usually what you'd get using that protocol. So to use URL in HTTP and Java, you're going to need to include or import some libraries. I recommend importing the java.net library. Pretty much have to do that one because those are, unless you want to build URL and HTTP from the ground up, those libraries, that .NET library already has that kind of built in, so you can just call those functions and classes. And the other one that you're going to need to import, probably not just for this, but just about anything, is the java.io library, which allows you to call on input and output classes and functions. So these libraries will allow you to open a connection to a site or a database. If you want to do a database like a SQL database, I did watch a video where someone was doing it, but they had to also import the java.sql library. So if you're running a database that way, that's possible. I couldn't think of any SQL databases for any reason why I'd want to, so I didn't do that part, but if you're curious, that's an option as well. Here's an example of the code that I wrote, and basically just what this does. I wanted someone to be able to test a website, so they just say put in whatever URL you want to do, takes that URL, opens an HTTP URL connection, and then what it does is this for loop actually goes through and goes through the header file. So if you've ever written HTML, normally what you'll see towards the top of a web page is you can have several different header tags that puts text at the top. So you might have ones labeled H1, H2, H3, and this basically just goes through and grabs, from H1, H2, H3, and it goes down until you get to like H9 if the web page has that many and displays what's written in there. Oops, sorry, let me go back. And then what it does is it uses this input stream. It's going to try to use that input stream to get that information. If it's not able to be connected, it should display unable to connect. And then once you're done, it should end the URL connection. What I found in practice, and I still have to sort this out, is it will always display as the last line that it's unable to connect. Or I've tried getting rid of the catch statement, and then it just throws the exception at the end saying that it's not supported. So I still have some work to figure out there why it's going to that point, but it does seem to work. So this is kind of the output I get. So I turn off my Wi-Fi and I tried to go to lds.org to grab that information. So you get a message, unable to connect. And then I turned on the Wi-Fi, and so it went to lds.org. H1 had nothing. H2 had content type, cache control, the date, the content length, connection. Then there went to grab some more headers that there weren't any, and then it ended with that unable to connect. So I still have to sort that part out. But you can kind of see basically what a Java program can do on a very small extent using that kind of connection. Any questions about any of this?
So you're doing really good right now.
Yeah, no, I thought you did great. I was just trying to think where we actually, like the part that you just wrote, where would you put that in, like if you were building your app or your application, where would you, I mean, is that just to get them connected to where you want to go? Is that the purpose? I was just trying to think what I'm using that for.
Yeah, I have to admit, I haven't, it's one of those things I've never needed to go to a website using like a Java application, but I could see like if you were building an application that like tested websites, I could see maybe you building something like this and that's like, oh, let me see if if these websites are ringable, almost like a ping, and you could get some information. One person was showing an example where they were getting information off of a database. Maybe if you were creating an application that was like a game where you were playing, say it was something like Uno, where you could store the deck of cards on the server, and then you would basically do a request to get cards that would pull cards from that database down to the device, so you could do like a multiplayer Uno that way, or whatever game. I could see some uses for it, but I'll admit I couldn't see any right away that I would want for it. But it is really interesting how easy it is in Java to do this. It's only a few lines of code and you can connect up to websites or databases, and you're able to pull that information off.
So as you were typing, well, I don't see your main here, but was there more code than just this that you were testing, or this was like in the main and this is what you've?
Oh, so I had a main, and I can show you guys what the main. Right now, I've just got the main doing. Basically, all it does is call this function right now. I figured.
Well, yeah, because you could have put the keyboard even over there and then just called to the.
Right, exactly. I just built it in here because I'm not sure how I'm going to make it work with the rest of everything else at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, I still got that to think about.
All right. I would say when you went looking to read and to work on to do this, were there a lot of good examples out there?
I would say, so the hardest thing about it was I was really confused about what exactly he wanted us to do.
Okay.
So I found some others who had gone through this class who had done some examples. Those were about the best ones I could find. Okay. Most people were using it with servlets, so I'm really interested to see how that comes next. I didn't want to take this in a direction where it was like we were doing servlets and stuff with this, because I know that it was Mason, yeah. You've got the whole servlets thing, because all the other videos besides the CIT 360 ones, they're all using it with servlets, and so I think that's the way it's really supposed to be paired. This on its own without a servlet kind of thing is not super useful, but with the servlet, there's a lot of uses for it.
Okay.
other questions?
And did you read the PowerPoint? I was just curious. I hadn't even read it to see what it was that he was expecting from us to.
Mm-hmm. I watched his PowerPoint, and it just seemed like he wanted us to utilize the URL and HTTP requests in a Java program.
Okay.
Beyond that, I didn't feel like he was steering us in a particular direction
Right.
as to how to
Well,
use
yeah, I don't think he is on any of them, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I certainly you want to apply this to the rest of the application, and I'll admit I'm still working on figuring out how I'm going to do that because
Okay.
it's a little off. But anyways, I did want to share, these are kind of the videos and websites I went to, if anyone's interested.
Perfect.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know. With this, we can get information from, like, I don't know, like a weather web page.
Yeah.
Or oh no, if I'm making like a web page,
Mm-hmm.
I can get information from another web page to put in my program.
Absolutely, yeah. So you can use that. So, and let me just show you, I mean, this probably isn't the best example of information you would want to grab, but this is just the example, just these few lines of code, basically, when you run it, I'm using it to pull information from the HTML for LDS.org. I'm able to pull some of the heading information from it. So you can see how it's grabbing that information. Now, obviously, you could grab much better information and much more useful information than this using that same kind of connection to any sort of web server or site that you want to go to, and even from SQL databases.
Okay. Okay. On my last class, we used like a from GitHub, and well, we used JSON, but yeah, this look like almost the same like the other one, but this one is just for the web page.
Right. Yeah. This is for getting any information from a website, web page. Yeah.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, should we move on to servlets?
Sounds good.
I'll stop sharing my screen.
All right, can you guys see the screen that says servlets?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So my presentation's kind of short, but I have some code examples. So servlets, what are servlets? I grabbed this quote from here. A servlet container provides lifecycle management, a single process to share and manage application-wide resources in interaction with the web server. And so together, this functionality makes servlets a desirable technology for server-side Java developers. So why should we use servlets over JSPs? A common question I found on the internet was that JSP is Java and HTML. So why would we want to use a servlet when it's kind of just the same thing, right? And so servlets can be used kind of as a controller in the MVC framework. And you compare it with JSPs, and JSPs would be the view part, but they could also display like Java, and it's easier to pass validations back and forth between your servlet and the JSPs. And so we also kind of have some tutorial things down here, which goes kind of over the HTTP stuff, which is why I'm glad we kind of did that first. So in this tutorial, it shows you some like cool diagrams that I've ballooned up here. So you have like the web browser, does the HTTP request, goes to web server, goes to servlet program, goes back to the database, and then goes back into the response, which goes back to your web browser that you can see. here's another one that's kind of blown up. Client goes to server, goes to the CGI application, and you could do responses. And then this one has kind of a different take, where the client requests from the server, it's generated, and then the response is sent, you know. Also has a good one down here where multiple users are going to the server, and it's, you know, processing it. So yeah, here are some of these. And so we're gonna go over a code example here. Let's see here. So mine's kind of messing up, so we're gonna make a new one on the fly. We're gonna go to here. Yep, web application. We're just gonna do testing. Next, you can pick Apache, Tomcat, or Glassfish. I have Tomcat, so we're gonna go with here. I'm not really gonna use one of these frameworks, so we'll just finish. Go ahead and makes your index, and then we're just gonna write here. And then if you go into source packages under default package, you can do new, you can do servlet. We're gonna make a testing, and yep, just accept all that stuff. And so in here, you can put your request and response, and you could grab those things. And as a response, you're gonna like write all of this out. And the cool thing I like about the servlets is that up here you could put your URL as testing, or if you wanted to change it to completely something different but still keep the testing.java, you can make it whatever you want really. And so if we just save these, yep, we can run it. Where's it going to pop up? Internet Explorer, the worst. And so we have our testing thing here, and then it pulls up our testing servlet, as you can see. And so this is like the most basic example because everything's generated for you, but it's kind of a short code example. Any questions?
So quick question on this page right here that you're showing. Mm-hmm. This is actually writing a small web page?
Yes. Yeah. You have your response printing out the HTML.
Uh-huh.
And so it'll generate this view source. And so you can see it is writing out exactly what
you put down there.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that you could do Java with HTML. That's pretty crazy, actually.
Cool.
Yeah,
interesting.
This is all generated basically, and I believe what he looks for is that you're passing data back and forth with the response and request things, and so that's where the HTTP stuff comes in.
Makes sense. Question for you, because I noticed when you created this file, you chose the Tomcat server. Are you currently running the Tomcat server then on your computer, or?
Yeah, so I have it pointing towards my downloads folder. I just downloaded Apache, and I pointed it to this on my first initial setup.
Okay, gotcha.
And then
so
it just accepts it for any other one you set up.
Got it. So you definitely have to do that step first then before trying to run the servlet, right? Because otherwise it's probably not going to work.
Okay, okay. So what version of NetBeans are you using?
8.2.
Okay, so when I open up my mine doesn't show web.
It doesn't?
Which one are you using?
Like you won't see this part right here?
Yeah. So I don't even have Java EE, but I know I can plug that in. But I was just wondering if the web one's one that you have to do as well. I mean, I can share my screen to show, but I was just wondering.
I don't know. I had to download a bunch of other ones because I also use this class for my PHP class or
Okay.
NetBeans support. So I have a bunch of ones that other people typically don't have.
Right.
Let's see here, tools.
I think it's tools and plugins or whatever. So if you go all the way down the bottom, then you can see which are installed and which ones are available.
Yeah, that one makes sense.
See, and you have Java Web and EE right there.
Yeah.
So it's probably, I'm going to have to. And so just because I plug it in or say bring it on over doesn't mean it's on there. I can then choose whether I want to use it. Because right now mine says Java SE.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd seen a couple other sites that said, oh yeah, we're going to make a web one. So do here. And I'm looking, I'm going, I don't see that on mine.
Yeah, that was the most like simple tutorial I could find is using the Java web one because it sets pretty much everything up for you. Because
Okay.
you could go directly in here and do the new servlet or even RESTful web services, JSPs, other super useful things that is just set up for you.
Right. Okay. And the servlets help you process the request faster?
I think it helps you request it or just like processes it better because it'd be kind of a pain to go into your HTML or your JSP and just to put a bunch of stuff in there. So let's see here.
Yeah.
Your JSP looks like this, and it's really weird. I use Spring with JSP at work, and so how we do it is we pass validation back and forth between our servlets and the JSPs. And it's an easier way of checking, oh, let's send a 200 response versus like a 500 response, depending on if the person has access or not, you know?
Right. And this was one that you turned in before. How much did he expect you to have? He just wants it that you went and grabbed something from somewhere and brought it back.
Yeah, it's just a real basic request and response kind of thing. Like, it's not super complicated. I mean, other than this, he kind of just wants a little bit more.
Right. Well, no, I figured he wants more than just that, but okay.
Yeah.
And when you went and were reading and studying on that, when you did it before or whatever, was there pretty good information to follow and to look at?
Oh, yeah. Like these are pretty useful. So like, if you can read this, it's pretty useful.
Okay.
I mean, they do a good job of explaining how to do requests and stuff inside a bunch of different tutorials just based on what you want. Like, tutorials. Yeah, Tutorial Point's also really good about stuff.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Hey, a question? What version of Tomcat are you using?
I think I just did the newest one, Tomcat. Okay, that's a lie. I did the newest version of Tomcat 8. I used 8 at work, so
okay,
that's what I'm used to. But yeah, 9 and 8.5 and stuff should work just as well.
Okay, so that doesn't matter which one we can use here.
The newer ones will have better support because I think Tomcat 8 is going out of support. Yeah, end of life has been announced for 8.0. Yeah, so 8.5 and more are continuing.
And it doesn't matter where we save. This is another one, like a lot of the jar files or.
Yeah, as long as you point it to it, it doesn't matter. Like mine is still in the downloads folder.
Okay.
So
And then
as long as you don't delete it.
right. So in like I think for JSON you have to download. Did you guys use the Jackson version or just the simple JSON jars or whatever you have to download? Because I guess there's a Jackson version. I just wondered what.
There are a bunch of different versions. I've used Google JSON and a couple others before.
Okay.
I use a regular JSON. Like JSON.org.
Yeah, and I went to JSON.org, but then I saw several on the board talk that there was more, I don't know, flexibility. They liked the Jackson version better. And so then I just. And then I noticed when I went to the JSON.org, it says if you want to just get the jar file, do this, but I couldn't use it. I had to bring the whole file in.
That's weird.
Yeah, I know.
So, like, if I go to JSON.org, okay.
Yeah, so I did that JSON simple or whatever.
Yeah, simple 1.1.
Yeah, I thought so. Oh, and this one says the version 2. I don't know.
Put the latest jar in
Okay,
your
that one.
class path.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted to use, and so I clicked it, but then I couldn't use it. Like it wouldn't work.
Weird.
Interesting.
Yeah, so right now I've got like the whole big thing in my, or well, it's not that big. I mean, they're not that big. I unzipped it. It's sitting in my downloads and thought, okay, should I just leave it there and point to it or move it somewhere else?
Yeah, it depends if you like clear your downloads folder or not. Like I do not.
Right.
So.
Because you should be able to click on that latest whatever, and yeah, see, and it just didn't work.
That might be because this is an archive, because this isn't a code archive.
Right. So then I just went up to the Java one that was on there, where it says JSON Java. And then it says in there, when you click under clone or unzip, it says you can get the jar file you want here, and I still couldn't use it.
So let's see here. If we go to JSON simple, can you technically pull it from here? I wonder if you can.
So if you click on where it says clone or download, under there was supposed to be a thing to say, do you want just the jar? Oh yeah, see, that one didn't. So I just downloaded the zip.
Yeah, you could download the zip and probably compile this because it has the build XML and other things in here.
Right. And last time I just downloaded it and then brought in the source files that just said jar. I just copied and tried to bring those over to the library. That's what I did with, I think, some of the Hibernate stuff.
Yeah, this one's old. It's probably deprecated by now. This one's a lot newer.
Yeah.
How old is Google's? It's not that bad.
Yeah, so I end up just going to that JSON Java up at the top.
Yeah.
But it does show all the JSON exceptions, and stuff that's there. But I thought, okay, is there a better way besides just bringing it all in? See, because right there it says you can click if you slide up in the README where it says click here if you just want the jar file.
Mm-hmm.
And it came in, but then I couldn't do anything with it.
Like, did you import it into your thing?
Well, I couldn't get it out of the downloads to even do anything. It just says this can't open.
Oh, that's weird.
I know.
Hmm.
So I was just curious which ones you guys were using.
Yeah, I like Google's JSON. It's pretty easy, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I like stuff that's got Gradle. I use Gradle at work, so it's easier for me.
Okay.
Cool. Well, any more questions?
No.
No, none for me.
None for me. Well, I guess I actually do have a question for the general group. Is this our last meeting, or do we have?
I believe we have.
We have
I think-
meetings through week 10.
Yeah, say week 9 or 10 because we still have the
Right.
case diagrams, well, and I saw there were several that posted. Has anybody done the system tests at all?
Yeah.
Because someone was saying, most of those look like it's to test an entire application, which none of us are building because we haven't made it past the basic level. So what do you turn in?
It's like user acceptance testing, but you just write it down. Let me see if I can find.
Yeah, I put a link on the chat. Maybe you can download the Simple Java on that link.
Okay.
Maybe
Perfect.
you can try with that one.
That was loud in my ear.
Okay, let's see here. Share screen. This one. Share. Okay, so this kind of works for a system testing thing. This is by one of the other guys in my group last semester.
Okay.
He did steps and descriptions. We did expected results, actual results, test results. It's something that someone in QA would do if they wrote it down, basically.
Okay.
I think he made a thing for it too. Did he? I don't know. Let's open his thing.
I think we did something like this in 260 where we were supposed to put, if you put in this number, this is what's going to happen. And
Well,
then
I remember in our JUnit test, we walked through like our functions and then had it say, if it's below or above the range, this is what it should send back or what it would do. And I remember doing those types of things.
Yeah, it's kind of similar.
So do we have to come up with like here, what we're looking at, where it's saying the application will launch or open, and that these are what you'll see in front of you, and this is what, where did he get that in description to do that?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Okay.
Let's see here. This is a Turtle application, so I think it's a Python, because Turtle is a drawing thing in Python that does pin up and pin downs, which is exactly what this looks like. Yeah. I think you just come up with a test thing, really, because he doesn't even have code in here. Just an example, really.
Okay.
So whatever you want.
Okay.
Just not super simple. I think he's looking for like 5 or more steps typically.
Okay.
That's what I've heard.
I'm not there yet. I just wondered, I know they were asking on the board, I saw some people saying, are we supposed to do a PowerPoint where we're just explain it and kind of,
Yeah, as far as I know, a spreadsheet like this works because, yeah, I've seen multiple people do spreadsheets.
Okay.
I wonder if I can find the other guy from last semester. I found Gary. He's on the first page here.
There you go.
Yeah, you found me.
Oh, there's mine. Or one of them, anyway. Whoa.
Yikes.
What did I
there?
do? Man, it thinks I'm a hacker. It must be so good. Oh, I must have just hit. Okay. Well, that's nice to know.
Okay.
There we go. Ooh, he's got one on here. What does this have? Nothing. Okay. Anyways, you can go through some other people's who have done the class before and kind of just use them as example. I've done that for some things.
Okay. I hadn't even thought to look. I haven't. Most time I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, I should have already done 2 last week and I have 1.5. And Well, in fact, the last time I was short like that, I jumped down and did JUnit testing because I thought I could whip that out. I know what that is.
Yeah.
All right, so we have JUnit testing next week. I think that's me. And is it systems tests?
Yeah, system level tests
Yep.
and JUnit tests. Yeah.
Okay. So have you guys been able to combine like your stuff together in what you're writing?
No, not yet.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, and then did you guys write anything for JSON or the QC JSON or just JSON?
Just JSON. QC JSON literally returns like not a lot. QC JSON.
And then on the JSON, I know we did it last week or whatever, because that's when I was working on now. Other than I stopped when I couldn't get the jar in and went, okay, I guess I'll work on that tomorrow. I hope I'll get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
QC JSON has less than 400 results, and JSON has like 180 million.
Okay. And then we have to show that we can read and write from it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm hoping but I maybe will do the URL and the servlet together though.
Yeah, you should be able to.
Yeah, they're meant to go together.
You could probably combine the servlets, this, and JSON together and have JSON do some of the parsing for something.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
Because what is it? When you go to a thing, right? Man, I always forget. Inspect element and go over here. Go to network. Do all. And see, you did a post, or I did a post, and it pulls up all your stuff. And you got your params, and you got your response, cookies, etc.
Okay.
Everything that it sends through.
Yeah, I think the hardest thing is I don't work or use any of this stuff. So I have to read it and I get, like, I can read the maps and the code really well, but then I'm thinking, what will I do with this? like, what am I really supposed to be doing with this?
I don't know. I learned most of my coding experience not from schools.
Okay.
It's way different in a real job.
Right. Okay. Yeah, so in my mind, I'm just trying to picture, what I'm trying to do with it, what I'm trying to show with each one. But if I could slam them all in there together and say, look, I've got this and this and this, that would be great.
Yeah, so like MVC, Hibernate,
collections. Well, so MVC, I showed each of the different levels from my game that I did in 262.
This Oregon Trail game thing?
No, mine was Harabi.
Ah.
And so I took code I wrote off the model level and showed it to him. I took code off from the view and the controller and showed, because we each did, I did parts of it. So I did a whole thing where I was the view to do the plant crops. I was the view, or I did the control for where the method was of what it was doing. And I was the one that did the stuff that was held on the model level of just the data. And so I just took code I'd written. Obviously, I gave him the main where I said that was a team, because it was our group project. But then I only had him look at code on each of the levels to show that I could use a MVC. And he passed that as a basic level. So I didn't write any code. I mean, I did write the code, but I didn't write anything new to show it to him. And then I took some of the tests that we had to write there and just wrote more tests to show more, because he wants that list. He wanted something for each one of those tests, and I just kept adding new methods in there to run new tests. And so that's what I did on, so MVC, I didn't write anything new. I just pulled what I had done before because my game was working.
I don't know if our game still works. I wrote most of it,
but our game was way easier than yours. Because ours, you pretty much could, between a view and one thing, could have done it all. Of course, they made it more complicated on, we'll store it in the storehouse, which will be an inventory item extended from here, you know. Yeah, I don't have nearly that many.
Oh yeah, no. The worst part is I was the only one who was semi-experienced with coding, and so we had like 3-hour meetings of me explaining how to do things. So yeah, it was a good class for me to learn how to teach people.
Yeah, well, and I liked the class, did really well, but the thing is, I haven't done anything. I did 262 right after that, and you don't do any programming in 262.
Is that the
Really
weird one that we just?
So that one is where you sit and read this book about DevOps. And
oh yeah, where we just do presentations.
Yeah, you do presentations. So
yeah,
I sat and did presentations about DevOps, which was great, and it was really predictable, and I knew exactly what was required every week with our group. And we were on a thing to be able to work together, but it didn't do any of this. I haven't done any programming in a semester.
Nice.
That's
and
really?
So, yeah, no, so I'm trying to look. Oh, go ahead.
I'm taking that class right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just presentations. Yeah.
Yeah, presentations. So now I'm trying to think back. Okay, what did I do in those hours of us working all day long in the day, trying to make it how to make it work, because the stuff wasn't anything what we were doing. Well, and even a lot of the examples were for the Oregon Trail, and we're like, we're not doing that. We don't move from location to location like that.
Yeah, this game was weird.
So yeah, ours doesn't have that many. My game works and runs. That part was nice and fun. And not that it was about the game, but it definitely helps to have it and could see where that went. So, All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you answering the questions. Hopefully I'll be able to get my jar in the right place so I can finish writing this up and be done.
Cool.
Thank you. Good luck with that.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.